What is the idea of the staff of Moshe? When it talks about in this week's Parshias, this week's Torah portions, where it talks about the Makkos, the plagues, there's a big conversation about the staff, the stick that Moshe held. This is apparently a very important part of the whole story. That Moshe, at least by certain Makkos, certain of the plagues, that Moshe is connected to a stick, and through the stick, there's some power that comes through the stick, or symbolic power. And to understand a little bit the first of the signs, even before the Makkos, before the plagues, which is when the stick, the staff of Moshe, turns into a serpent, into a snake. So what is this symbolic, what is this embodied idea? What does this embody? What does it represent? And what does it embody? What does this quality represent? So to talk a little about the mata of Moshe, which is a mysterious stick. It's created in Ben Hashmashas. It's created in this twilight time. The Medrash and Targum behind Muslim Nazil says that Moshe Rabbeinu found it, that it was planted from Gan Eden, and he found it in the garden of Yisro, his father-in-law. And the stick, it said the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of Hashem, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, and it depends the position, if it's up or down, represents the correct order, or the incorrect order, which represents a time of judgment and din, and of punishments, as it were. So let's see what this idea is. And this will be based on a mimer, or we're going to learn a mimer, a discourse, Chassidic discourse by the Alter Rebbe in Parshas Vaera, in the portion of Vaera, in Torah Ohr. Hashem tells Moshe to take the staffs, the stick, throw it in front of Pare, and it will turn into a serpent, to a snake, and then they will turn, the Egyptian sorcerers will turn, or apparently return their own sticks into snakes, and then their Mata Ma'ar will turn back into a stick, and then will swallow up the snakes. So what is this talking about? Love and to understand what is the idea of the mata that turns into a snake. Mata is the stick, and if you look at the Hebrew word mata, memtes hey, memtes clearly is connected to the 49, which literally is memtes is 49. Hey is connected to the fifth level, which represents Nun Shara Bina, the 50th gate. So mata is connected with the 50th, and nachash is also connected with the number 50, with the 50 gate, which represents a place of transcendence. As nachash is nun chash, the transcendence, or the ein sofius, the infinite, that is concealed. Chash means silent. That's concealed in the place of silence, which that represents the snake. So to understand this idea, what is the mata, what is the nachash, what is the stick, and what is the snake? Two parallel ideas. So the beginning of the Maimon starts off in Iksiv, Mitzrayim. It says that they emptied out Egypt. What does this mean? So to understand, why is this the first, the Moifus Arishan, why is this the first miracle, the first sign that would happen in Egypt, and why does it come as a preparatory step before all the 10 Makkos? In Eksiv, when they emptied out the Mitzrayim, they emptied out the idea of Egypt. Amar Azal, the Gemara says, Sha'asa kimitzula shemadagim, that they emptied out like a fisher's net that is empty of all fish, which means they cleaned everything out. What does it mean that they cleaned everything out? When Klal Yisrael, the people of Israel, left Mitzrayim, they sifted out everything that was important, as it were, and they left it empty, as an empty net. What does that mean? Which means that when they left Mitzrayim, the idea of Golus in general, the idea of exile, is the purpose of exile is to enter into every single place of the world, to add converts, which the tzaddikim say, what does it mean that to add converts? The purpose of the exile, the dispersion of Klal Yisrael throughout all the nations, throughout the entire world, is to elevate sparks. And every place has a particular spark. Every place that you go to has their own indigenous particular way of being. And the avoid of Klal Yisrael and the work that a person has to do in this place that they're at is to elevate the consciousness or the style that they're in, wherever they're in, and to elevate that into Avodas Hashem, to a higher level, to the service of Hashem. So when they went into Mitzrayim, so the reason why they left Mitzrayim in a way that we can never return to Mitzrayim, that there's even a permission to go to Mitzrayim, to return back into Egypt, there's a permission to live there, is because because Klal Yisrael, when they left Mitzrayim, they elevated all the sparks. And there was no more sparks left for them to elevate, and therefore we don't belong there. You only go to a place, whether you're conscious or not, you only go to a place or drawn to certain places because there's certain sparks that have to be out, certain type of spiritual sparks that only we are connected to, and there we have to elevate. As a klal, as a general, as a collective, Mitzrayim the sparks are emptied over there. So what does that mean? Lost to understand what is this idea of the sparks of the breaking of that comes originally from the breaking of the vessels, and how do we elevate them? So Zohar says, and that Rebbe talks about this in great length, that the Shvira is because the breaking of the world of Tohu, the 7 kings of Tohu. That means, listen to the Mashal, just like in the parable of this idea. In a Nishma Sadam, a man, a soul of a person, before a person comes out into the body, is completely nullified to the Ein Sof, completely nullified to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, completely nullified to Hashem. It means it's one with the Creator. The soul is one with the Creator. Because there's nothing to conceal the Creator's presence. That's the way the soul exists when it's in disembodied state, before it becomes embodied. But once the soul enters into the body, then there is the ego, and there's the concealments of the body. The body has its own desires. Apparently, seemingly, could be opposite of what the soul desires. And therefore, the world appears to the immediate consciousness of a person, as if the world appears as if it's something separate from its creator, something separate from the Ein Sof, from the infinite light. And a person does not see in first glance. It's possible not to see the world as time and space, as a concealment, which is the world, the word for the word olam. World comes to the word helam, concealment, which means you look at the world, you see tables and chairs, you see time and space, you don't see the presence of the infinite presence of the Creator in everything. So there's the way it exists. The soul exists before it comes out into the body, which is in the way it's one with the Creator, one with Hashem. And then the way the soul comes down into the body, where there's a certain amount of concealment, or apparent concealment. So the Rebbe says this is similar to this idea with Shir Zakelim, that there is the light of these sparks that came from the world of Tohu, which we explored many times before. These levels of Tohu, these sparks, entered into Mastimras Makol Tzad. They entered into the place of Klippa, into the place of concealment, until the place, until there's could be an understanding that this thing, this physical thing, is an independent thing. It creates itself. And what's the example, the most intense example of this idea, is Pare. The pasuk says in Yecheskel, talking about the Pare of that generation, but it represents the Pare. All the Egyptian rulers were called Pare. What does Pare represent? So it says that Pare, li urivani asasini. That what is Pare? What is the idea of the Pharaoh? The Pare says li uri, that I am the Nile is mine, and I created it, which means I created myself. That's like the essence of the depth of klipa, of this concealment, is not only don't you understand that you're a created being from a creator and you're linked to a creator, but the light is so concealed within you that you think that you're self-created. And not only self-created, you create what allows for creation what allows for creation. In the ancient Egypt, literally in the land of Egypt, not only the metaphor of this idea, but literally in the land of Egypt, Egypt was the Nile was a deity. And it made sense in that time for people to worship the Nile, because the Nile was the source of all the sustenance. The moment the Nile dried up, people starved and people died. There was no refrigeration. That was the way of the ancient world. You lived off the waters. If you lived on water, that's the way you survived. You lived inland. If you didn't have access to water, you didn't survive. Or else it was a place that rained continuously. But in the desert, like in Egypt, you lived off the Nile. That's where the fertile ground is. That's where people survive. So what is the image that Yecheskel, the prophet, says about Pare? He says he is swimming in these waters, in the Nile, which is the source of all sustenance, which is the deity that's worshipped in the ancient Egypt. And he's saying, I created it. I created it. So in the understanding in terms of the nitzutzis, the sparks, is like this. Even though the light of the spark in its original form before it enters into the physical world is connected to the Ein Sof, connected to infinite light. In fact, it's great with greater intensity. But then once it enters into the body, once it enters the physical klipa, it's already a deep concealment. Kimashal, the idea of klipa, what is the idea of klipa? Klipa literally means a shell. So, or like a peel, something that's covering over a fruit. So, for example, there is klipas agas, there's a type of fruit where it's impenetrable fruit, which means you don't observe the fruit. The shell, the peel is inedible. And in order for it to get to the place of the fruit, which is the nourishment, the place of life, the place of the chayas, you need to crack open the nut. You have to crack open the nut. That's one type of fruit. Then there's another type of fruit, let's say, for example, an apple, where the fruit is where the peel is edible, or an orange, which is it's sort of edible. Some people will eat it. So it depends how dense the cover is, and dense is opaque, which means it does not allow its light to penetrate to be revealed. That's how intense the spark is concealed. So just like in the metaphor, just like in the mashal, when we have a nut, and in order to eat the nut, to eat the fruit, to eat the life, to be connected to some type of energetic sustenance within this nut, the only way to get to the nut is to crack open its shell. This is what it means also spiritually in terms of our own life. That there's certain areas there's certain things in our life, there's certain klipas in our life, there's certain concealments in our life, which is like a klipas naga. It's the way to release the spark could be either through either through engagement completely. Let's say, for example, if you want to release the sparks, let's just think about it like this way. Let's say you want to release the sparks, which means you want to receive nourishment, which nourishment comes from the spark, really, from the divine spark that exists within everything. So let's say you want to be nurtured by an apple. You want to eat the apple. So you can make a blessing, and then you can eat the entire apple, right? Which means that the way you release the spark and receive energy, receive energetic strength to be sustained is through complete engagement. And then there's some things that are sort of tenuous. It's like an in-between. You could eat it, you could be engaged with it, or you could do a light peeling if you wish. If you don't want to be bothered by this shell, you can be some type of light, a delicate stripping away of its concealment. But then there's certain things in life, for example, in the metaphor of a nut, that in order to receive and to eat the fruit that's concealed within the shell of the nut, is you have to literally take a hammer or some type of tool and crack it open. Which means in order to release the spark of something that is very much in a deep state of concealment, the only way to release it is through some type of breaking open, some type of resisting, some type of friction that allows for the spark to be revealed. So this is what the Alter Rebbe says in terms of klipa. The deepest level of klipa, the deepest level of this concealment, everything comes from the source. That comes from the light, comes from the Ein Sof, comes from the infinite light. What is klipa? Klipa is the complete opposite understanding, which is concealed so much. The light is so much concealed in the perception of the person that's carrying this klipa that the person himself thinks that he's self-created. Or the situation is that it could be even within yourself. There could be a part of you that is so opaque. There's something lurking, something very deep and dark, let's say, that within your own consciousness, that you can't be engaged with it in a very direct way, and say, okay, I struggle with anger, and I really could talk myself out of it. And when I am angry, I really know how to deal with it, and I know how to navigate the situation. I could be engaged with the anger and sort of massage it and get out of this place of anger. That's one possibility. That's where you're eating the shell, so to speak, is to release the spark, to reach some type of positive resolution. Let's say the anger, because of the anger, it makes you, either think about what you think is really important to you and why you're getting angry, and what does it indicate in my own self that I get angry about these things. So there's some type of process of learning, some type of light that's released. And sometimes the way to release that light, that spark in the Shvir Sakeh, the light of the spark that exists within in the narrative, in the situation, is by some type of engagement. But then on the other hand, there's some situations, and we're talking about not only within Para, but we're talking about within our own consciousness, that it's a very dark thing. It's a very dark thought that we're having, God forbid, and whatever that thought can be. It can be anger, lust, or any type of dark thought that a person's having, and you can't engage with that thought because you'll never release the spark, and you'll just be in like an indefinite battle. So the only way actually to move forward in life is certain things you have to crack open, which means you have to push it aside with great strength. Some type of cracking open needs to be done. That's when the klipa is so concealed that it doesn't let for any light to be revealed. And the only way to engage with this is through some type of resistance, like a pushing it aside or cracking it open. That's the construct within our own consciousness that related to the idea of power emotion. In the bigger picture, in the macro picture, and in the macro picture, this represents the Pare. Pare represents the complete opposite of Moshe. Moshe represents bittul, a nullification, anachnuma, that he considers as nothing. He's the greatest anav, the greatest humble person that ever lived. Moshe represents humility and complete transparency of ego. That's the bechina. That's the level of Moshe. And Pare is the diametrically opposite consciousness or reality, which is complete klipa, so stuck that Pare thinks he's God. Pare says liyur v'nisasini. This is in the Chazal, not even from the Psukim from Yecheskel, but in Chazal and Midrashim, it speaks of Pare saying that he doesn't have to go to the bathroom, saying that he's a God. So these are the two diametrically opposite paradigms. One is someone that's completely humble and nullified and conscious, aware of the Ein Sof, the light that's shining through them, and they're just a conduit and an emissary to reveal the divine light within this world, and therefore they're malleable and forgiving and humble, etc. And the other one is a very deep person that's very stuck and very rigid in their perception and their reality, what they think they are, and in self-importance, that they actually think they're God. They're some form of deity. Says the Alter Rebbe. Let's continue. The next paragraph is a little bit tangential and it's a little bit complicated too, but we'll go to the next paragraph after this. Now we can understand what is the idea of the miracles that happen in Egypt. Because the point of the miracles, the point of the miracles the point of the plagues was not a punishment for the sake of punishment of a vengeful God, but the idea was that Egypt, the concept of Egypt itself, should recognize, as the pasuk says, Ki ani Hashem, that I'm God, to recognize the presence of the Creator in this world, not only to recognize the presence of the Creator of the world, which is Metzias Hashem, the existence, but also Hashkacha, also the idea of a divine providence, that I am Hashem in the midst of the land. And the highest level is Yichud Hashem, the unity, the oneness of Hashem. There's no one like me. Like Rabbeinu Bachai divides the three types of makis, the tzachad ashmachav. One is revealing the mitzias Hashem, the essence of that Hashem exists. One is ashkacha, and Hashem b'karev haaretz, and Hashem within the land, within your midst, which is divine providence. And one is ein kamoni, that there's no one like me. There's only one. There's only achdas Hashem, oneness of Hashem. That's the point of the achdas Hashem. But sometimes, in order for someone to come to this awareness, someone that's really stuck, the klipa is really into a deep level of concealment. Pirush, so the Alter Rebbe says that what is v'yadu? That you should know. He says v'yadu lashon shvir. V'yadu actually means a language of breaking open. V'yadu, so it says that there was a fight, and it was ansher sukkos. The v'yadu comes from a language of breaking shvira. For example, the Alter Rebbe says it's just like we said before, that sometimes to reveal the spark that's concealed in a deep concealment, the only way to reveal is through cracking it open, like we said in the metaphor of a nut, and obviously the interpretation of that metaphor and things that are real concealment. Same thing also in the Nimshal, this interpretation of this metaphor, in order to be revealing of the Ein Sof, of the infinite light, till a place which there should be a revealing of Hashem's presence in this world. There has to be a breaking open. And that's the shvir, and it's gala and the tzayis nich b'ein sof. And that's the breaking open that was able to reveal. That's the point of the Asamakis. That's the reason for the 10 plagues. The point of the Makis were to break open the klipa of the arrogance, and there's of the yeshus of the arrogance of the I, of existence, of the separate I, and in that itself there are 10 states. So the 10 states correspond to the 10 spheres, correspond to the Sarvamaras, the 10 utterances that the world is created through, which eventually through the 10 makas, through the breaking open of the klipa, there can be a revealing of the 10 dibros, the 10 revelations, which means that it has to occur on every single level. There has to be a breaking open of this klipa, of this concealment, of the I-ness, of the ego. Obviously, however, Klal Yisrael was in a state that were they're believers that says that in order for the Klal Yisrael was Yadu Hashem on some level, because they were believers. But for the Mitzrayim, for the concept of Egypt and what the process of going through the plagues was to break open the klipa, the complete concealment of I-ness, of ego, to allow for the revealing of the divine presence. So then the Alter Rebbe continues and says, and that's why it's understood, according to the above, we can understand why the first miracle, the first sign, the first indication that Hashem told Moshe to perform in front of Pare, was that the mata turned into a nachash. That the staff of Moshe and Aaron turned into a snake. Because it's explained that the makas was for the point of breaking the klipa, breaking open this concealment. And what is the point of the miracles? To show that even though it appears that there's a tremendous concealment of the divine light, in this reality, the truth is that there's nothing in the world that's really klipa. There's nothing in this world that is true to what Klippa says it's true to be. There's nothing independent of the Creator. There's nothing independent of the divine light that's animating it. But what? What's the situation? Sometimes it's concealed. So what is the purpose of the Makkah? What is the purpose of this transformation? This is just the illusion to think that this thing has an independent reality and it's unconnected to its Creator. Everything is really batal telekus. Everything is really nullified to the Creator, because the Creator created it, and everything is its entire life force comes from the Creator, comes from the koyach of the Ein Sof, the koyach of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, of Hashem's light. It's just the light enters in such a deep level of concealment that it's possible for the person that's on the receiving end of this light, and it could be possible that the person receiving could perceive it as an independent being. Even the Ramak writes in time of the Vaera, Vaera writes that the Hashem is such a Rachman. Hashem is the divine light is so compassionate that it gives life to the person that denies the existence of Hashem, of God, which means the life force. The only reason why this person is alive is because there's a chayes eliki, this divine life force is animating and giving life to this individual, and the individual is using that life force to counter the life force itself and say that it doesn't exist. And that's the tremendous amount of compassion that Hashem creates something and gives it life. And the way it reciprocates this receiving of this light is to deny its existence. So this is the idea of liyur v'susini. This is like the ultimate construct of what it means to be klipa, to be in a place of utterly concealment, that you don't recognize the source. So in the light that comes down into the world in a particular way, which is very defined, let's say to animate this individual person, that individual person. So it allows for the concealment in such a way, just like the animating force coming into a table, or into a chair, or into a tree, or into water, wherever the animating life force is. If you're not living with a higher level of consciousness, it's possible to see the water as water, and the tree as tree, and nothing else. And that's the sense is Creator, because the life force is very defined and finite and giving life. So what is a miracle? What does a miracle do? A miracle is a revealing of a transcendent light, and the transcendent light breaks down the nature or shatters the structure of nature to reveal the light that's already present there and before. This is therefore the first miracle was the transformation of the stick into the snake. What does that mean? The stick, what is the idea of the stick of Moshe, the staff of Moshe? The staff of Moshe comes from the word mata, comes from something that's drawn down, something that's penetrating, something that's drawn down in a particular, like shetiyas, in a particular way, atiyah, like a shtus, it's like a sata, it's being drawn down into. What is being chen shevet? Also the word staff, another word for the stick, which is a lighter form of stick. Is also the idea of shevet, also a staff. Comes from the word amshacha, to draw down, like it says kuch v'deshavet. The Gemara talks about a flying star, which means that it's being drawn, the light is being drawn, and it calls it the shavet. So you see the shevet is connected to drawing down. What is the drawing down? The entire structure of the revealing of kiddush, of sacred, of holiness, of revealed presence of the light of Hashem that's revealed in this world, from the highest level to the lowest level, is called mata. It means it's being drawn down from the highest source all the way to coming out into in our world, in our experience. What is the Tana? What is the serpent? What is the snake? The Tana, the serpent, the snake, is like Vaera says in the Nevuah Yecheskel, that he says that he's a Tana Nagala. He's the great serpent, the great snake that roams his waters, that roams the Nile. So what is Nachash, the snake, is the complete opposite of what the idea of Mata. Mata is the drawing down of a likus, the drawing down of Hashem's presence, of Hashem's light into this world, albeit in a very finite matter, and therefore it's concealed, but it's a way that it's not so opaque. So you can sense the presence. That's one level. The opposite, or the extreme opposite of that idea, or that idea when it goes to such a step, to the furthest step, would be when it goes into such a place where the light becomes so concealed that the concealment thinks it's its own creation, that the klipa itself, the klipa which is the concealment, thinks that it created itself. So you have the mata is the drawing down of Elokus, the drawing down of Hashem's presence, and the nachash, the idea of the snake, is the diametrically opposite idea of complete ego and complete separation. So what did they show? They showed that the mata, their staff, turned into a snake. By turning it into a snake, they showed that you think that the snake, that the power of the snake, the power of avodah zarah, of idol worship, is that it has an independent power. And not only does it have independent power, but it has creative power. It creates itself. But the truth is that everything in this world, there's only one force in this universe. There's Ein Milvadeh. I feel even with there's no even with Ksafim, there's no sorcery, which means there is only really one power in the universe. Not really, there is only one power in the universe, which is Hashem, which is divine light, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the light of Hashem. That the light of Hashem enters in such a place that it becomes reduced and concealed in such a way that it allows for the possibility of klippus. It allows for the possibility of somebody to believe that it has an independent force. Not only has an independent force, it created itself. That it's totally idol worship, which is the idea, and the embodiment of the idea of the nachash, of the snake. So by turning the stick into the snake, what Moshe and Aaron were showing through the power of Hashem, they were showing that the mata, the drawing down of a lakus, of Hashem's presence in this world, is what enlivens even the snake. What you think the snake is an independent power, there is no independent power. There's only Hashem. Is that the light of Hashem comes down even to the place of death. That's until it becomes in such a concealment that it actually becomes a nachash, becomes a snake. Then that was the first step. Then here, then there was a transformation of the snake back into the stick. And then not only that, and then there was the mata iron, the staff of iron, then swallowed up all the snakes. That first it was revealed that Hashem's presence enters from the stick into the snake. And then the second tier was that the snake was transformed back into the stick to show that the stick is completely nullified to the stick at all times. That they're completely nothing. In other words, in the first part of the process of the miracle, which is that the staff turns into a snake, that represents that you should know, Pharaoh, that you're saying that the snake has an independent power. You're a great sorcerer, and you lived in a place of tremendous idol worship. That was a place that was seeped in idol worship, in Avodah Zarah, which is a type of conception that we're separate from Hashem. So this is what the conception is. So what did Moshe show? What Moshe and Aaron show? That the mata, which is the drawing down of Likus, the drawing down of divine presence in this world, penetrates even the snake. That you should know that the snake also has a chayis alaki, also has a divine life force that actually is enlivening it to give force to that snake. But that's only the first tier. That's only the first step, because then you can still say that the snake has an existence. Maybe not an independent existence, that's completely dependent on the light of Hashem to animate it and to give it force and to give it animation, to give it chayas, but it still has an existence. So then the second step of the miracle was, and then the snake itself turned into the stick, which shows that it's nothing, that it's only the mata, it's only the revealing of Hashem's presence. There's nothing else. Not that it's a yesh, it's an existence that's being enlivened by the Creator's light. That would be the first part of the miracle. You look at the snake and say it's an independent being. So you're saying, no, really a snake, really the chayis of the snake, the livelihood, the life force that comes into the snake really comes from the place of the mata of the staff, which represents Yud Kei Vav Kei, and drawing down of Hashem's light into this world of the Ein Sof. That's the first step. But you can still say it has some type of existence. Comes along the second part of the miracle and says, look at the snake. The snake is nothing. The snake is not only is it being enlivened by the life force, it doesn't have an independent existence besides the life force. And you want to see how that is, open your eyes to a higher level of revelation, which is the idea of a miracle, to see it in a higher perception. And you'll see that the snake actually is transformed into a stick. This is what the idea of the miracles that happened in Egypt was to reveal two levels. First is to reveal the level that Elikus, that Hashem's light, is everywhere in every place. And even in the place where it seems like the greatest concealment, the greatest darkness, whether we're talking about externally or even internally within our own consciousness, within our own levels of self, to know that really it's the Hashem's light is present even there. And then the second tier, the highest level, is to recognize there is no independent force at all. And it's only just a likus, it's only just Hashem's presence that's coming to be revealed. Sometimes it's revealed in this form, and sometimes it's revealed in that form. But ultimately there's only one force, and there's only one period. Ein oid milvad. There's nothing else besides Hashem. All right,